Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Hunter. This group intertwines varying genres such as progressive rock and avant-garde. The song in particular will have a lot of atmosphere and will have moments of highs and lows. We're going to be looking at some Bent Knee, which I kind of already assume most of that'll be in here. We actually checked out Bent Knee on live stream. Just, was it last week? Was it week prior? It was recently. And, I mentioned that when it comes to Bent Knee, I expect a couple of things. And one is to start low, build into something large, to bring in a rock focus, but also go towards noisier avant-garde or experimental sounds. What I expect from them. Moments of pleasure and moments of tension, I guess would be the right word. It's usually multifaceted in what their highs represents. But let's dig into this. We're going to look at the track These Hands. Let's dive into it.
I see a man in the alley, hiding heaps of grief. These supple hands are trembling, cold tails pass in the breeze. I smell the fear in the alley, wood hiding limbs of glass. These tired hands are steady, your fate is tied to the mast. Every time I see you, I am not myself. I am acting, smiling, I'm not one of them. Will I teach my children how horrendous it feels?
Yeah, so we have several bars of 4, followed by these 2 off-kilter 5-beat bars. 2 of the 5s and then 4 of the 4s. It's 26 beats, that's an interesting phrase. So some off-kilter energy with really impactful downbeats on beat 1, followed by this tense introspection, growing anxiety.
Hear my name in the alley, shadows flicker morse with the lights, shots fired for no reason, ghosts with their palms open wide. Every time I see you, I am not myself. I'm acting, smiling, I'm not one of them. Will I teach my children how horrendous it feels to draw the line between skins?
So we're keeping with the 5. Oh, whoa. Oh, what? So that's 4/4, but that feels weird. Oh, there's a polyrhythm in the delay. That's what it is. Yeah, triple it. Oh, and the drummer incorporating it into the hi-hat. Oh, jeez. Matching the intensity of the tension harmonically. A white noise compression building up under everything.
I drop a dime in the alley, glimmers to bring him the news. These steady hands are trying, though they've done nothing for you.
Yeah. That's pretty much exactly what I expect out of Bentley. Although there's a couple of neat twists in here. I kind of have an image of them that's more harmonically focused than rhythmic, but it's very cool to see the rhythmic side show up in here, bringing the complexity and the emotional tension in from something beyond pitch. But it does have the highs and the lows, the subtle growth throughout, and the feeling that it's one idea. Although usually my limited exposure to bent knee has been a slow burn of singular focus, moving from a low to a high, and then the song is over, where this is more of a bubbling up and a diminishing over time, rising in intensity and falling off, then rising back and falling off. It's not something that I think is too far out of their wheelhouse, just not something that I've heard before from them. It's just a nice reminder. I should listen to a full Bent Knee album one of these days. I think I have, actually. I'll look that up later. I think I listened to a recent release at one time, but I need to dive into their back catalog for sure. I'm not usually a fan of noise and tension and sort of chaos we reached at a certain point in this track, but they control it in a way that, I don't know, feels more. I connect to it better. I don't know why that is. The word I was going to use was it feels more authentic to me, but I don't want to conflate my connection with a song's emotional narrative and an artist's authenticity and the passion that they put into the music. I'd wager that most people who make noisier music have a passion for it. It's not something they just set out to do for money, because noisy music isn't really financially successful. It is usually a passion project. And so, like I said, I don't want to make that connection there, but something about this feels real. Something about it I can I can connect with. I can be along for that story, and maybe it's just the back and forth of it. I don't know. Let's dive into a little bit here. The song starts very quiet. We get a nice bass tone, And already you can feel something underneath the surface. The bass comes in, and we have this nice little like 4 note idea that moves into a rising bass slide. Um, but the tone of the bass also has white noise, almost like a hiss to it, almost as if it has too much gain on it. And you're getting some, I don't know, amp hum or something like that alongside the signal of the bass itself. There's already a little something extra. Right from the start, you can feel the electricity in the tone that they're presenting through a single instrument. And what I love is we have this white noise drone and this really low bass melody, and through this width of sounds, the vocals cut through. They're high pitched. They are almost a bit sharp. Not well, man, how do I do feel like tonally they do err on well, you know what it is? They're bright. It's very bright vocals, which combats the warmth of the bass tone. But they are sharp shape wise too. They pierce through all of the sound that we have. They're very singular and focused, where the bass is wider and more resonant. This contrast works really well, and I think it shows up in a lot of Bentley. It's not like the vocalist does too many different things with her vocals. She has her. I'd almost say it's a unique characteristic. I think if I heard her in any band, I'd be like, oh, that's the Bentley vocalist. There's just something distinct about her vocal delivery and the coloring of her timbre. But it's used well here to sort of contrast as an extreme opposite to the bass. We're also introduced to a little bit of the harmonic idea here. The bass presents warmth but movement, especially that slide in general. I would like to focus on for a second. We have a boom, 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 the nice resonant walking up of an idea, and then the slide itself. It is kind of long. It takes its time, and we get a lot of the microtones between where we start and where we end. It's very amorphous, which feels distinct to the vocals, which at this point aren't really holding any notes out at all. They're not quite staccato, but they are very punctuated. The bass, on the other hand, is resonant. It allows the notes to have room to exist, and the slide is an elongated tone. Already we have opposition. This is tension from a sonic perspective, but I also think harmonically we have a bit of tension here too. The notes are consonant, but the feeling of this section is a bit unsettling. The very next section, there's a couple other instruments that show up in this intro, but I don't really remember what they are, and they're mostly ornamental. They embellish that vibe in general. But the next section is possibly the chorus to the song. Like I mentioned, we took this energy, we rose it up, and we added more layers, and we reached this peak. Here we have that 5/4 parts. 2 bars of 5 and then 4 bars of 4. And the 5 is very off kilter. It feels strange every time it comes in, even though I know it's going to be there. It's still unexpected in a way. And it creates this unbalanced pulse as we emphasize that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we're not really expecting that 5. And so it almost feels like the emphasis is on 1 and then 2 of the next bar and then 3 of the bar after that if we were counting in 4. This is what makes it feel a little odd, but also we have bits of brightness versus silence. The impacts of those beat one are massive. The entire band is in on them. It almost feels like the band fades out over the 2, 3, 4, 5, and then pops back up into existence on the 1, like a bright flash of light slowly dwindling back into darkness. Those sections don't feel like typical 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just a static type of counting. Exactly how I counted it is how I felt them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a burst followed by a decay. But then the 4 4s that come after it feel a bit more static. It's an attempt, I think, to focus in on something, to feel a general beat and to regain balance after that off kilter rhythm. And it's this back and forth. It's a battle of balance, basically, of trying to find your footing and stand your ground, but constantly tripping over something. A little bit of stumbling in the darkness, and then a moment of clarity, followed by darkness again. And even the second time through this chorus, the third time through this chorus, I know this stuff is coming. And it still catches me off guard every time. I want you to keep that 5 in mind. Harmonically, though, the chorus is very tense. We have the most amount of layers here, and some of them are working together to create a bit more of a harmonious element, trying to create some sort of positivity within the sound, but most of it is working with each other to create a chaos or a dissonance. It's competing harmonic ideas, competing rhythmic ideas. The drummer is kind of all over the place in the chorus. First of all, trying to capture that 5 pulse or 5 beat idea, and then transitioning it back into the 4, back into the 5. The drummer's trying to keep all of this going so the song doesn't fall apart. But even in between that, there's a ton of snare fills and tom work and cymbal work going on. It is impressive the way that the drummer feels like they're trying to keep everything connected while also technically working to create that chaos as well. It's a very fine line, and the drummer's doing a fantastic job embodying both. It is just it's tense, all of it, and it's difficult to get a grasp on. And like I said, it's just very it's unsettling, but not in a spooky or eerie way. It's just, I don't know. It's like a bad dream where every step you take is on ground that crumbles beneath you. So you take your next step, but it also isn't solid ground, and you're constantly trying to find some footing. And sometimes you do, but that's quicksand. You didn't know it. It's haunting in a non-spooky way, and I think that's impressive. It's so easy to create eerie kind of music when you're going for something haunting, and they didn't. Now we bring the energy back down for another verse. We go to the chorus again. It's this bubbling up of tension, rising and falling stuff. But it takes us to the bridge. And this was interesting because we stuck with the 5 in a way that removing the pulse on beat 1 kind of makes it feel awkward. This is where tensions rise, not harmonically. There's a few pitch-based things in here that create tension, that create some dissonance, but primarily what I pull out of this is masterful use of rhythm in order to create an unsettling feeling. This is the part of, I'm going to keep using the nightmare metaphor because it just keeps working. This is the part of the dream where, I don't know, the walls start to morph into the walls of other places, and things kind of become very stereotypically dreamlike. It's tough to get a grasp on even where you are. People are morphing into different people. Situations are rapidly changing. The music takes on this metamorphosis, constant metamorphosis on the rhythmic level. At first, I was trying to find that 4 pulse that's typical after every chorus, and it wasn't there. It was a 5, but we lost that initial pulse at the beginning of every group of 5. So it kind of disguised itself. The drums felt like they wanted to be playing in 4, but we're just, I don't know what it was about it. I think we had bass kick on like 2 and 4, but then you have 2 beats there, 5 and 1, before we come back to that 2. So it's like it wanted to be 4, but it couldn't, and that created a little bit of oddity in it. Eventually, we had a guitar come in, and it brought in polyrhythms because of its effects, sound effects. I think it was the delay on it that was creating a twisted pulse that pushed hard against what the drums were doing. Somewhere in there, we shifted to 4, I think. The delay ended up creating a triplet vibe against that, and it just becomes rhythmically chaotic. There are some harmonic things in here too, but again, I was really paying attention to the rhythmic element of this, which is where I felt a lot of the tension coming from. In what is probably one of the most masterful things I think I've ever heard in rhythmic composition is that this triplet effect in the echo of this guitar ended up getting picked up by the drummer, and they were playing polyrhythmically within their kit. They were laying down the 4/4 on parts of it, but presenting this triplet thing in other parts. And it wasn't a triplet eighth notes, in which case you could just kind of line it up with the 4/4, but it was triplet quarter notes, which presented its own oddity within the core vibe or the core pulse of the song, and it just becomes very rhythmically dense here. Before the bass turns off their echo, or the guitar turns off, yeah, the guitar was doing it, turns off their echo, and we move into a section that should be in 4/4, but the drummer has carried on this eclectic rhythmic juxtaposition from the previous section. And so we've entered into a new type of wild polyrhythm that's really difficult to keep track of what's going on. And this is sort of that amorphous metamorphosis stuff that I was talking about, where everything is kind of a part of everything else, and it's just this constant melding of ideas across different instruments being pulled around. I'm sure on the harmonic level we also see something like this as well. Different instruments coming in and joining in on different components of the harmony, different pitches being used to create layers of tension and contrast before pulling us back into that final chorus and then into the outro. And the outro is interesting because we kind of bring all the energy down. And it almost feels like we're going to return to something a little more calming. I don't know if I'd call any of this soothing, but calming for sure. Just less intense, maybe. But I feel like whatever they're doing here between the vocals and the one instrument that's still playing, there's so much tension left over. Chordally, we have resolution in the chord progression, but sonically, the song feels like it's still in the same area it was when we started. We haven't resolved anything. And it just kind of leaves me with a feeling of being overwhelmed, being defeated by whatever is antagonizing us, whatever's stressing us out, and not feeling better after the song's over. We fought it, we tried hard, nothing worked, and we're still just as tense and anxious as we were when we started, maybe even more so at this point. And the vocals also feel a bit defeated at the end of the song here, but that might just be the lower energy delivery compared to some of the high intensity vocal parts that we heard in the bridge and the final chorus. It's intense. This whole song it is a journey, and like I said, they found ways to bring in the metric side of things to make it feel tense too, which is just something we don't see too often. A lot of bands are really good at creating really intense atmospheres, but it's usually from a harmonic position. The chord progressions, the melodies put on top of the chords, creating something that feels eerie. But this didn't. This feels almost real in a sense that panic attacks aren't stereotypically spooky or scary. They're just intense. And this song captures something like that really well. There's some really great uses of instruments in here as well. I think I heard a violin at one point. There's some cool synthesizers slash piano work going on in here. The production is fantastic, but I didn't really focus on much of that. The ornamental writing on here is great as well. I think many of these sections would feel less involved, less emotional without them, but they do sit on the periphery of the song. And there are things I would really hone in and pick up on a second or third time through it. Whereas, I'll be kind of honest, I kind of got pulled into a casual mode here, just feeling the song through most of it, and kind of living out the emotions, the stories that the music went through. So I'm going to hit some lyrics here, see what's going on with those, see if we can't pair that back to any of the way that I read the music in this, and then we're going to wrap this one up. I'm going to need some help on this one. The chorus says, "Every time I see you, I'm not myself. I'm acting, I'm smiling. I'm not one of them. Will I teach my children how horrendous it feels to draw the line between skins?" Generally, I think this is about. The first two lines, pretty clear, right? It's about presenting yourself differently in different situations. But the second part almost feels as if this person is going to pass this trait on to their offspring. I think everybody wears masks. Different situations call for different parts of you, different slices of who you are. Who you are around your friends is never going to be the same person as who you are around your bosses. When you're in a meeting, very different from when you're at a party. You have different slices. We are, as humans, of multitudes. We are not just a singular idea. But this song specifically, because of what we'll talk about in the verse, I think is about defensive acting. It's not about presenting a different part of yourself as much as creating a different person to be in specific situations. And I think here it's specifically about a survival technique, how to act around a specific person, trying to be on their good side so that you can make it out of a situation. And the fear that you'll present this to your children as the way life is, rather than teaching them the skills they need to avoid or combat situations like this. But I'm not entirely sure if that's the way it's supposed to be read, because the verses are kind of vague. Verse 1 says, "I see a man in the alley, a hood hiding heaps of grief. The supple hands are trembling, coat-tails pass in the breeze. I smell the fear in the alley, hood hiding heirlooms of class. These tired hands are steady, my fate is tied to the mast." So we have a class divide here. It seems somebody who is down on their luck, possibly homeless, says that their hood hides their grief, and the other person walking through the alley is someone who is scared because they have a house. They have, as they said, heirlooms of class, a way to show that they have some money. And the hands are steady. Ready for a fight, it seems. Verse 2 says, "I hear my name in the alley. Shouts flicker remorse with the lights, shots fire for no reason, ghosts with their palms open wide." It doesn't say who does any of this. Who fires the gun? Who shouts the name? It says that the lights are blinking in Morse code, but it doesn't say what they are signifying. And the idea of a ghost with their palms open wide. It could be that that is a representation of someone who has been shot, ready to become a ghost, ready to become, well, not ready, but, on the verge of death, no longer ready for a fight. The palms are now open wide, defenseless. The bridge says a dime I see. And on the 2017 album Land Animal, the song ends somewhere around here. I did notice when I was trying to get all this set up for today that this version was a bit longer. It comes off of the Boston Sessions Volume 1 compilation album from 2016 and features a third verse that isn't in the one that shows up on their album. It says, I drop a dime in the alley, glimmers to bring him the news. These steady hands are trying, though they've done nothing for you. And so the verses tell me about class divide, and that those in a more comfortable position should try to help those below them, but that our narrator acknowledges that despite knowing the difference, that they haven't really done anything yet. Even the idea of dropping a dime in the alley to bring the other person good news is sort of a slap in the face. Even in 2017, a dime wasn't going to buy you much. It was something, a handout, but not one that would actually change anyone's life. So I'm curious, what is the purpose of the dime specifically, as even the version that was put on the later album includes the phrase, a dime I see, in the bridge. But how does this story of class inequality and helping those below us relate to the chorus at all? Of pretending to be someone else in order to survive and not wanting to pass that down to your children. I'm not really seeing the connection there. So if anyone has insight on that, let me know. I'm curious if someone has a different perspective on this. Maybe I'm in the complete wrong area and that's why it's not making any sense. I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Bent knees, these hands. Let me know what you thought of it, if there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on. Maybe you just have a totally different opinion on this track. Oh, also, yeah, bring in all, the tension makes sense for the topic, kind of. I'm having a tough time bringing it all together. Just let me know. Put that kind of stuff down in the comments section. I'm looking forward to all of your thoughts on this track. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.